Oh, well, thank you ever so much for joining us, Stuart and Taz.
Soon.
And you've been on quite the journey, and so I thank you a lot because this is really helpful to our other customers, especially your story, which involves concealment, heat gain, and well, we're going to hear all about it. So if you can cast your minds back to 3 years ago or so when you bought the property, I think it was a new build, and then your journey from there to deciding to transform the space.
Yeah, of course. Shall I go?
Go for it.
Okay. Yeah, so like you said, we bought this lovely home of ours just under 3 years ago. And the builders had very kindly put a sort of single story extension on the back of the house, which we use as our sort of living room, family room, playroom. Um, and it had little French doors and a little window out to the back garden. Um, so it was, and our this part of the house, the where we are now, the living room, is north facing. So from living here for a little while, over our first winter especially, we realised that it was a very dark
It's the
room,
darkest room
the
in the house.
darkest room in the house. It doesn't have any, didn't have, I should say, any sort of southerly light coming in at all. And it's where me and my little girl, or our little girl Phoebe, who's just turned 4, we spend most of our time, because I'm a stay-at-home mum with her, so we spend most of our time in this room playing. And it was just really gloomy, wasn't it? It just didn't feel like a really nice space to be in.
Can I add as well, before we bought this house, one of the things we wanted to do was potentially build an orangery or an extra space. But when we actually bought this house and we saw it for the first time, we realised we've actually got the sort of skeleton of what could be an orangery. If we put our mind to it and get the right builders on a project, we could actually convert this space into kind of like an orangery.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah,
we
had
realised,
a canvas
yeah, we
going to be developed, wasn't it?
yeah, we didn't really need another room. We didn't need the extra space because it's a big enough space already. So yeah, we decided that we would take our orangery plans and put them into making this room into a kind of orangery with lots of glazing. So yeah, so that was in, so we had the original idea for it probably not long after we moved in, and we saw how dark and how even on a sort of sunny day, it really didn't get a huge amount of light in here. So then it was just a case of when do we do it? We'd obviously just bought the house. So
When was that magic moment where you thought, yes, we'll go for it?
well, it was January 25, so a year ago now. We just thought, yeah, let's do it now. We've lived in it for a couple of years. It's something we keep coming back to. It's something we really want to do. Sometimes you have an idea for something, and then when you've lived in a place, you think, actually, I don't really need to do that. But it was something that we just kept coming back to, wasn't it? We just really wanted to do it. So in January last year, 2025, we were like, yes, let's do it. We had our builders. They'd already kind of come and done. We'd had a surveyor come and do the structural side of things. The what is it?
Steels.
The survey
Yeah, the steels
for
and
steels.
load bearing, and we know we want a roof land, so we know how big we want it. So they did the architectural drawings for that,
Yeah.
where the steels were going to go.
And then yeah, we just asked our builders, when can you fit us in this year? And obviously because of the nature of the project, having a big hole cut in the roof and everything, they wanted to wait until we had some semi-decent weather, a longish stretch, which you can never guarantee, but so we decided
And can I ask, how big was this hole that you've built into? How big is this roof lantern?
It's 4 meters by 2 meters. So the room is 6 meters by 4 meters. So it's
And then the doors, what the doors there?
the doors are about 4.5 meters long and about 2.4 high. So there's a lot of glazing in this room now, and yeah. So we started the work in June 2025, and about maybe three weeks in, the builders cut the big hole in the roof. They took out the old doors first, knocked out the wall, made the big opening for the new sliding doors, and then they started work on the roof. And
The
yeah,
steels went in with the roof still on. Once the steels were in, that's
they
when
cut
they
the
cut
hole.
out, and then they ended up redoing the roof as well, just because it wasn't draining as well as it could be. But that was just a sort of a benefit and something we probably would have done at some point anyway. So it actually worked out quite well in terms of remedial works
Yeah.
on the drainage and improving the structure of the building. And should also say we're near an airport here, so we made a decision early on to go with acoustic double glazed glass for the doors and the roof lantern.
Mhm. So yeah, so
And
yeah,
when did you realize that you might need a blind? What was that moment?
oh, that was so what? So we were very lucky last summer in that we had a pretty decent summer. And there was one, so the day, I think it was the day after they'd cut the hole, we came down first thing in the morning to say hi to the builders and everything. And every night they were covering the hole with a big sheet of tarpaulin. So that first day that they cut the hole and covered it over, we didn't really notice anything. But the following morning, we came down to say hi to them, give them some tea, all the usual stuff. And they'd taken the sheet off the roof, and it was a really sunny morning. And we were like, wow, it was incredible just seeing this light, this sunshine flooding into the room at 9 o'clock in the morning. It was like being outside but inside. It was incredible. So we suddenly thought, oh, if it's like that at 9 a.m., what's it going to be like at 2 or 3 in the afternoon? So later on that day, I came down to just to have a chat with the builders again in the afternoon. It must have been between 2 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I just said, oh, how are you? How is it? And Tim, one of the builders, was like, oh, it's pretty hot in here. So the combination of having so much, beautiful sunlight coming in, which was the aim, but also knowing how hot it was in there, and that's even before any glass had gone in. We were like, oh, maybe we need to find a way to control the amount of light and heat that comes into the house. So that was our eureka moment, if you like.
And how soon were you in contact with shading companies?
Oh, I think that evening we started researching after work, didn't we?
Yeah.
Started researching, started Googling, the
Different
types,
different manufacturers, yeah.
Yeah.
And the key thing was, because it's such a large roof lantern, it was finding a company that can make one that can fit that size, and there aren't that many.
Yeah, without the, sort of rippling and having the
Like a slatted one as well. We didn't want to go for a slatted blind.
Is that the pleated variety you're referring to there, Stuart?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a honeycomb duet style.
Yeah,
Yeah, because 4 by 2 meters. I was add a few comments here because it is large, and blinds historically are designed to go vertically, drop down and hang down, which is kind of straightforward. But the technology involved in spanning 4 by 2 meters, so quick math, 8 meters squared, means without having a saggy fabric and lots and lots of rippling around the edge is quite difficult. So the system you've gone for tackles that beautifully, and the result is a fabric that's flush with the ceiling, and and with minimal, if not no rippling at all.
Yeah, exactly. For us, the aesthetics were important as well as it, practically doing what we needed it to do. We wanted it to look good because, we've gone for such a beautiful roof lantern, for all this glazing to bring the outside inside. We didn't want to then, make this room look weird when the blind was closed. So yeah, so having what we've gone for was the perfect.
It had to be a premium blind. It couldn't be anything.
It couldn't be anything else, really.
Yeah. So you've gone for the Athena roof lantern blind with a jasmine, so almost white, well, white essentially, but jasmine saltis touch fabric, saltis touch, if I can say that right, with a 1% weave. So fantastic at reflecting the radiant heat, but also amazing at reducing echoes and things like that. So what was your thought process there?
Yeah, for us, the echo wasn't the main consideration, really. It's
That's
not
sort of
something.
been like a nice outcome there.
Yeah, it kind of makes the room in the winter, in the evening, when if we close the blind, it makes the room feel much kind of more cozy again, instead of being this sort of atrium style room. But that was just that was like an additional bonus, I suppose, to have that. Chris mentioned it to us, but it wasn't our main consideration. It's just an extra nicety to have.
The main consideration, I think, was, like you say, it's got to be flat, and when it's closed, we want it to almost look like the ceiling was, it's just continuation of the ceiling when it's closed. So you get that lovely effect of almost like the way it used to be, but you just know that, at any point in time you can open it up and see the sky, and it's just stunning.
Yeah, no, fantastic. So yeah, you got the Athena. It's different from many other systems because it's got 30 kilos of tension across it, which is over 3 times almost any other system of tension to keep that flatness, as you said, Stuart, that aesthetical look, and to avoid stretching in the fabric longer term. So whilst it's an initial investment to get that extra engineering in, it's the fabric's usually the first thing to go and get a smiley sort of crescent shaped stretch mark if it's not the right engineering. So it's money well spent. As well. You also went for a sun sensor.
Yeah, we're quite techy. We've got a lot of fair amount of home automation. So we wanted when we didn't know that we could have that originally, it was Chris that mentioned it. Would we be interested in it? And we decided to go for it because we can. The nice thing about it, we've not really had a chance to try it out yet, because it's been so gloomy since we've had the roof blind installed. We've only had it in for 2-3 weeks. Yeah, it's only been in for 3 weeks. So obviously, it only being the beginning of February, we've not had a huge amount of sun. But what we did like about having the sun sensor as an option was that we can adapt it and control it to a certain degree. So if it decides that it's too sunny and wants to close the blind, we can kind of tweak it to but if it decides to close the blind and we don't want it closed, we can tweak it to our kind of recommendation, or our
the other benefit is that if we're not here and it's sunny while we're out, when the sun comes out, we'll come home and it's closed and it has protected our furniture from the UV, and the room hasn't got super hot.
Exactly, yeah.
So that's probably the main benefit.
That's one of the main benefits.
It's an excellent add-on that generally works very well, like you say. Well, you've said it very well, Stuart. So what was your experience with Chris? Chris is I suppose he's our customer advocate. He's a problem solver. So your sounding board when you first contact WindowTreat.
Yeah, Chris was brilliant actually. We like we said, we did some research that first night when we realized that we were going to need something. And it was probably the next day or the day after that we contacted WindowTreat, and we spoke to Chris, and he was very knowledgeable. He just gave us loads of information on, you know, blind fabrics, on the system itself. He told us exactly how it worked. And then obviously told us about the automation that we could have as well. But he was just really, you know, for us, he was just really knowledgeable in his field. So from quite early on speaking to him, I think we decided that WindowTreat was the company for us. Because
I think prior to that, we'd had a few chats with other companies, and they didn't seem to know anything about the products that they'd be fitting, or whether it be actually what we wanted. It's like, yeah, we can do that.
Exactly, yeah. So I'd spoken to another company and said, you know, we need a blind for the roof lantern. These are our concerns. This is, you know, kind of what we're looking for. And they were like, oh yeah, we can do that. And then when we started asking sort of more probing questions, they didn't have any samples to show us. They couldn't really talk through what technology they used or anything like that. So for us, you know, having Chris be so transparent with us up front and telling us exactly how everything worked, and
it was all very comprehensive as well.
Yeah,
so sent all the documentation through
exactly.
email.
Yeah, and then he sent us, you know, George's video testimonial, one of your previous clients, and he also had a really big roof light. His was a flat one, but it was also really very big as well, probably a similar size, I think. And that really helped us because, again, for us, you know, knowing that you guys could do something for such a large lantern, you know, was
And that someone else has done it as well.
exactly.
And there's something very special about your project, because I think, Stuart, I've probably got to address you on this one. You did a bit of designing after watching George's video, because George built his own concealment system, as opposed to putting blind space in. But if you could talk through a little bit about what you did and why you chose not to have blind space, for example, and what approach you took, that would be great, because the solution you've both implemented to conceal the blind is amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, so I suppose it was a bit different for us because we've got the steels supporting the roof lantern, and they go from edge of the roof lantern to the edge of the roof lantern. So it wouldn't have been possible for us to use a blind space, even if we wanted to. So we had to come up with a sort of a novel solution to concealing. And after seeing what George had done, obviously we couldn't see exactly from the video, but it gave us a sort of a guide to go on. So the next thing was to get the dimensions of the blind itself. So where the you know the is it called the cassette, where the roller goes into the tracks as well. All the measurements on your website, also in the documentation that Chris provided. So based on that, it was pretty straightforward to do a sort of bird's eye diagram of the roof lantern and where we want the concealer into relative to that in terms of dimensions, and then also the vertical view. So where we wanted to extend the ceiling out. So that's essentially what we did. We extended the ceiling out into the void, and so effectively it looks like the ceiling is just continued, and then it goes up, and then it just goes in a bit. So we're talking 10 centimeters on the track sides, 10 centimeters at the back end, and then I think it was 22 or 24 where the cassette sits. And that, to me, is perfect for concealing, as long as you can sit the blind directly on top of your concealer. When you're sitting underneath it, you cannot see the tracks or the motor or anything. And it's just lovely. So yeah, the drawing was pretty key though, because you need to know where the wires are going to come through, for obviously for powering the blind itself. But we also want to which we haven't done yet, but we want to put in some LED lighting up there. So I wanted to bring in some another cable, but obviously it couldn't get in the way of the blind that needs to be slightly higher up because we're going to run the LED around. So all these kinds of things required measurements that, you know, if you just tell the builders without a design that they can look at, you can't guarantee that they're going to get it spot on. Unfortunately, as well, because we've used the steels as a guide, the steels obviously are perfectly square because we were
They have to
fortunate.
be.
Yeah, the builders did all the welding on site with, you know, cutting and welding the steels on site. They measured everything perfectly. So the same person who did that, he built the concealer, and I said to him, it's got to be perfectly square because it's going to be a, you know, super taut blind, as you say, 30 kilos. And he delivered, didn't he? He was
Yeah.
very happy as well when we told him that the surveyors from you guys were very impressed. The only little niggly bit was the plastering. Obviously, we had to have the upstand plastered inside. But yeah, it still worked out pretty well because when the guys installed the blind, they just had to sort of sand away some of the plaster just to get it square again. There wasn't a massive, massive problem.
Mm. Oh, excellent, excellent. It is. It is. We'll see this. See it at the end when the blind's in operation. So how did the installation go? I mean, you've dealt with builders obviously for months, and then you had
Yeah.
our installers.
Yeah, they were brilliant. They were, you know, I think because the the concealment had been done so well, they really didn't need to do a lot of,
No.
you know, kind of adjusting of anything. So they came, and I think they were here around 9:30, 10 in the morning, and they had sort of installed and tidied up and everything by about 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So it was a very straightforward process, and yeah, they were nice
Yeah,
guys.
everything was left very clean and tidy.
Yeah.
There were no scuffs on the obviously white, freshly painted, no scuffs. They did an amazing job at keeping, like, despite, like I said, having to take some of the plaster away, I wouldn't be able to tell that they'd done that. So yeah, did a great job.
They are very, very clean and tidy. That's almost catch the dust before it hits the ground.
Yeah,
Yeah.
With
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Henry Hoover.
I'm so used to going round after builders have left for the day or whatever,
Decorators,
or decorators with the Hoover, even though they, you know, they all bring their Henrys with them. I'm
dust
so
sheets and things.
so
Yeah,
used to going round at the end of the day without, you know, with our Hoover and just, you know, getting rid of the dust that's fallen, but there was almost nothing to get rid of, you know, when Martin and Brian had finished up. So that was, yeah, that was nice.
Thank you. Well, I've only got two questions, but the $1 million question is really, would you recommend WindowTreat to friends and family?
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. I
Oh,
mean, you guys have been a pleasure to deal with from our initial phone call with Chris through to, you know, like Stu said, with the design of the concealment box, you know, having Chris's input on that side as well, sending through all the documentation with all the accurate measurements and everything, through to installation and sort of post sales, as you know, aftercare as well. So yeah, we would definitely, if we know anyone who is doing another, who, you know, is doing a project like this, or, you know, has any blind requirements, then yeah, we'll definitely mention you guys, recommend you guys.
oh, that's music to my ears. Thank you. And the question that everybody else wants to hear is, can you show the blind in action?
let's hope we can see it. Here we go.
Ta-da!
Brilliant. And it totally disappears, doesn't it? As it
Yeah.
reaches the end. Very, very quiet.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really quiet. It takes an exactly a minute, I think,
Yeah,
to
we
go
timed it.
from one end to the other. Um, and yeah, and now it's closed. It feels like it did, especially today because it's quite gloomy. It feels like it did before we had the lantern. So yeah, it feels like a nice cozy room.
But even so, I should say the fabric is just tiny bit, lets a little bit of light through.
It does
Yeah.
let sun through, yeah.
But filters out the UV, so it's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Well, thank you ever so much for sharing your journey with other customers that may be exploring as well. And so that's brilliant. Well done on your decision making as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.